our destiny, we solemnly declare, side by side we stand, highlands of the blue Caribbean Sea. This our native land, we pledge our lives to thee. Here every creed and race find an equal place, and may God bless our nation. Here every creed and race find an equal place, and may God bless our nation.
Almighty God, most beneficial and merciful, Creator of the universe and embodiment of divine wisdom and light, we come before you with thanksgiving and praise. May your will be done in our nation as it is in the heavens. Please bless our political leader, party officials, activists, and all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Give us the grace to always see good, be good, and do good, and the courage to serve the people. Protect us as we stand against injustice and iniquity, and inspire our endeavors to find the right solutions to the problems that are affecting our fellow citizens. Grant that we may always work together with humility and respect for the greater happiness of all and the honor and glory of our country. Live from UNC Battleground, this is the Virtual Report, streaming on all platforms.
Thank you. Good evening, brothers and sisters. Welcome to our UNC Virtual Report. I am Councillor D Rambally, and I am proud to be the local government representative for the electoral district of Rio Claro North. This evening, I'm here with my brother, Councillor Kern Ramdin from Marabella East, and together we will be taking you through tonight's proceedings. Ladies and gentlemen, our first speaker is true Trinbagonian patriot and a warrior. He has traveled the length and breadth of this nation, calling out the PNM for their neglect and disregard for the people. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome to our virtual report, Mr. Victor Roberts. Thank you.
To the revolution, people crying out for justice. Some of them crying out for freedom. Want freedom. Everybody crying out for democracy. Now it's time to take a stand, yeah. Come on! Cause this is the revolution.
Honorable political leader, members of parliament, senators, NATEX, my fellow activists, councillors, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. As I stand here this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, I stand here with one focus and with one mission. And that focus and mission is to remove the People's National Movement from office. Ladies and gentlemen, we are witnessing a behavior within the political arena, something that we have never ever witnessed before in this country. We are seeing the brutal action of the PNM the blatant disrespect for law and order, the sufferation of every constituency, notwithstanding what is happening within our rural communities, ladies and gentlemen. Today as I speak, ladies and gentlemen, from Matlat to Cedras de Carcass, the infrastructure continue to deteriorate. Matlat Road in some cases is one way. When we look at Clark Road in Penal, we have seen a portion of that road closed.
Okay, people.
We are looking at the SS Erin Road just before Sibalek heading south. And on the right hand side, you will see it's only a matter of time before that road also collapse. We have seen in Quarry on the SS Erin Road, same thing, one way. We have seen, ladies and gentlemen, down in Sobo Extension in Labre, the road is on the verge of collapsing. In Happy Hill / Robert Hill in Siparia, again, ladies and gentlemen, and this is the kind of neglect and wickedness that we continue to experience by a government who show no mercy for you, the poor, the oppressed, and the downtrodden. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you that within the constituency of Labre, there have been protest action throughout this week, and ladies and gentlemen, last week rather, and ladies and gentlemen, I want Keith Rowley and Fitzgerald Hines to know, the Minister of National Security, and Faris Alwari, and the whole of the PNM, that the people who were protesting in that constituency, it is PNM people, while Fitzgerald Hines will stand up and said to the media that it's UNC, and a matter of fact, consider the people who standing up for their rights in that constituency as terrorists. Tonight, I want to tell Hines and Rowley that the onlyest terrorists in this country, it is the PNM government, because they are the ones who continue to terrorize the life and livelihood of the citizens. And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I have a new acronym for Hines. I have an acronym for Hines. It is the 3 Ds. And I want if anybody could tell me tonight what that 3 Ds stand for. That 3 Ds, ladies and gentlemen, stand for dumb, dunce, and dotish. That is the Minister of National Security. Because if a Minister of National Security who continues to sleep in the Parliament, I don't know if he's studying at night. I don't know if he wants to be first in class. But I am suspecting that that man continue to spend time because he want to top the class. And in order to top the class, ladies and gentlemen, you have to have high grades. Your grades have to be high. And if you examine what I'm saying, then you will understand why he continues to sleep in the Parliament instead of looking after the interests of the people of this country. Ladies and gentlemen, I am telling you tonight that this PNM government, they have reshuffled and they have moved one failure and put him in our next ministry and creates a bigger failure. When you look at Faris Alwari, a man who never win one matter in this country, they moved Faris from Attorney General and put him in rural and local government. And that, ladies and gentlemen, I am saying it have to be a curse with the PNM, because as the rain smile, MP Dave Tancoo have to go out and try to rescue people in his constituency. As the rain smile, you cannot come down the highway because they refuse to clean the drains. They refuse to look after the infrastructure that will bring ease to you, the people in this country. And tonight, I want to ask the people of this country if they will continue to sit down and allow this government to perpetrate all the evil and all the wickedness without standing up. You see, tonight, I am going to make a call for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I remember I believe it was Fitzgerald Hines, who had made a call back in 2014, 2015, for thousands of people to come out on Rice Road. Well, I am making a call tonight for thousands and thousands of people to come out and stand up in your community against this government. Protest in your community. That is my call. We had an incident in Palo Seco. And for some reason, ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you how the police service under PNM Jacob continues to adhere to whatever his bosses. You see, we caused that problem, you know why? Because when the police service collapsed by the interference of Keith Christopher Rowley, the president, Bliss Sipasad and others, the people of this country sit down. They sit down and remain quiet. And now, because of that collapse, we have Jacob sitting with a pajama in the seat of the police commissioner. And today, ladies and gentlemen, Jacob continue. I saw Jacob Hines walking somewhere recently, and I saw Jacob foot behind Hines. I am asking myself if the police service has now become a PNM party group, because what we are seeing is the acting commissioner of police allegedly following the instructions of the Prime Minister and the Minister of National Security. So in this country today, you cannot stand up. The people stand up in Palo Seco recently. And you know what happened? 6 police vehicles, over 17 police came to my house. And what they said to me, Inspector Marcel, what he said to me is that intelligence tell them that I am responsible for the unrest in that constituency. So I said to Marcel, if it is that information came from the piece of equipment that you all get from Israel, send it back, because that piece of equipment misleading you, the people. But to the end of the day, what they were interested in, as I leave to come up to do a program on Friday, a police sergeant stopped me and showed me on his telephone where from command center they state that the protest in Palo Seco, it is organized by the UNC, and Victor Roberts is the agent of the UNC to ensure that the protests continue. And that is the games they play with you. But ladies and gentlemen, we must acknowledge, we must realize that this police service today, under the leadership, I wonder if I should say leadership, but under Jacob, the officers of themselves are despondent. You know why? Because they themselves know for a fact that they have no leader. It is each man do what he could do, because Jacob is bent on following the instructions of the PNM. When we believe that we had an independent institution in this country, I want to tell you tonight as we wrap up that there is no independent institution in this country anymore. The EBC, the police service, the judiciary, the law association, it seems the Integrity Commission, it seems as though every one of these institutions now becomes a PNM party group. My time is up. God bless. Have a good night.
Take a stand, yeah.
Come on!
Cause this is the revolution, the people's revolution. This is the revolution. I wanna hear everybody sing. Everybody sing freedom. Man and woman sing freedom. Everybody sing freedom. Everybody sing.
Thank you, my brother Victor, for sending a very strong message to the PNM. Our next speaker needs no introduction. She currently serves as a deputy chair of the UNC National Executive. Please welcome to the UNC Virtual Platform Member of Parliament for St. Augustine, Ms. Kadisha Ameen.
Moving this people's revolution, my brothers and sisters. Let's all walk together as one. This revolution is about restoring our democracy. And this revolution is about stopping this creeping dictatorship.
My friends, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, political leader of the United National Congress and the best Prime Minister Trinidad and Tobago ever had. We are at the UNC headquarters at M. Rampersad building, and let me take that moment to acknowledge the St. Augustine team who made their way down to San Fernando for their continuous support tonight. My friends, coming after my brother Victor Roberts, who has been a champion and a voice on the ground, I want to tell you that there is power in the voice of people. My friends, the role of a government is to provide, either on its own or in partnership with other entities and organizations, public infrastructure such as transportation systems, communication networks, sewage, water, roads, bridges, and waterways. That is one of the role of a government. Disaster response is so important in governance and in running a country that in many countries, Trinidad and Tobago included, the organization for responding to that disaster falls under the ministry responsible for national security. While the murder rate is going up, the rest of the ministry is also collapsing. And so we have disaster management falling apart. And we have the man responsible for the prevention of massive flooding, major landslips, and preventable disasters. Rohan Sinanan. What do we hear from the man responsible for the upkeep of our major infrastructure in Trinidad and Tobago? You know what he says? It is normal. Those areas have a low gradient. That is expected. Floods are happening all over the world. There is an attempt by the Minister of Works and Transport, Rohan Sinanan, to try to get citizens to accept the massive flooding we are seeing as something acceptable and a normal occurrence. He is so desperate to cover up his neglect of the infrastructure in this country, of the water courses, that he has failed as a minister. My friends, as I speak to you tonight, residents of St. Augustine constituency are once again marooned in their homes. You may have seen on the news Valsayn South, Spring Village, Trantrail Road, all of these areas. But I remember our brother Rohan Sinanan, and I'm only saying brother because he's a fellow parliamentarian and I want to be respectful tonight. I remember Rohan Sinanan declaring that flooding will be a thing of the past. All you remember that? Every year since that promise, millions of dollars have been allocated for drainage and clearing rivers and maintenance of infrastructure such as floodgates and so on. And you know what happens? Every year, millions go back unspent from the Ministry of Works. Money allocated to prevent flooding. So it is not a matter of lack of funding. It is a matter of total incompetence by Minister Rohan Sinanan. And yes, over the last 7 years, I have spoken about the PNM's deliberate starving of the local government for resources to undertake maintenance work, drainage work, and so on. And that is part of the reason why everywhere in this country is flooding now. But I will leave Mr. Pocket Square for another night. He is as clueless as ever. He has done nothing for us to really respond to, and he continues with his pappy show when it comes to local government. But I will deal with him another night. We still have many areas where Caroni 1975 Limited used to operate, where Petrotrin used to function, where many of those water courses are now abandoned. And I also recall that in the 2019 local government election campaign, the PNM made a promise to us. They promised that there will be a national drainage plan funded by the Development Bank of Latin America. And they made a big announcement. Whatever happened to that? Do you just jump on a platform when it is an election and make promises and then they never materialize? That is PNM we are facing now. So Rohan Sinanan continues to trivialize the severity of flooding, and he is also blaming citizens. So the gradient of the land and all these things. But he is ignoring the fact that the flooding is now occurring throughout Trinidad and Tobago. You have areas in Cocorite, Maraval, right now as we speak in Cocorite there, in Arima, in Sandy Grande, they had 4 feet of water. In Kunupia, Chaguanas, Pinal, Oropuch, Valsain South, as much as 5 feet of water reaching to the top of the street sign. You will not believe it. But the neglect of the minister and the refusal to take action is making the situation worse. We have floodgates that have not been repaired, leaking, pouring gallons of water into the community. And all it requires is for the Minister of Works and Transport to repair the floodgates. All it requires is for the Minister of Works and Transport to fix the embankments. In Bamboo Settlement, in Woodland, in Caroni, in St. Helena, all of these areas continuously flooded, and these things are preventable. I know because when the United National Congress was in government, we did so much work and reduced flooding throughout Trinidad and Tobago, whether it was UNC or PNM constituencies. So having spent millions of taxpayers' dollars, Minister Rohan Sinanan continues to preside over the worst state of neglect of infrastructure and drainage. Citizens have lost their lives. There are people who have died in flooding. Tonight, I want to make special mention of the situation in Valsain South, where people are marooned in their homes. And this has been happening every year. And there is a simple engineering solution that has been submitted to the government, that has been submitted to those in authority, and there has been no action. This past 4 days is probably the longest period that those residents have been marooned, unable to come out of their homes, to access health care, to go to school, to go to work. And all it requires is a floodgate where the Wyabal River comes into the community, and that Wyabal River flows into the Caroni River. And all it requires is one floodgate. You tell me Rohan Sinanan, with the millions of dollars at his disposal, can't install one floodgate in this country? An engineering plan was designed and submitted with a flood dam and a pump to be installed in a similar fashion as what they have in Bamboo 2 and Bamboo 3. And I want to mention, when you see flood in Bamboo 2 and Bamboo 3, again, it is because of the neglect of the government. Why is the floodgate in Bamboo leaking for so many years and you refuse to repair it? Why is it that the pump, which you know does not have the capacity to take the water out, is still there? And every time there's a flood, you have to bring in a temporary pump. I want to ask Rohan Sinanan, who is getting the contract for this temporary pump you bring every time? And not every time the pump comes, it works, but they have to get paid. So I want to tell you, Rohan Sinanan, this flooding is not an act of God. This is an act of incompetence on your behalf. This is an emergency situation, and we need a project done in this area to prevent lives from being lost, to prevent health hazards. when the people in Trantrail Road and Dookie Singh and Benny Lane are marooned in their homes, the health hazard that they face is tremendous. And I want to ask if it is that the minister is refusing to service these areas because they are UNC-held constituencies. I will not stand for the constituents of St. Augustine being victimized because of who they voted for. I don't care whether you want to come in your P&M jersey. If you want to come and campaign, come and fix the problem because they are citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. As a member of Parliament for St. Augustine, I have been lobbying on behalf of residents in and out of Parliament to have these situations fixed. And I want to tell you that during the last budget debate, I made specific mention of the floodgates and the embankment and so on in these areas. And the minister promised to visit. I am still awaiting his visit, and I am holding him to account for his promise. But something else came to my attention. When countries are affected by natural disasters, there are funds in place, international funding in place for recovery from disaster. The government, it was reported on yesterday's newspaper, Trinidad Express, that this government has received a total of US $5.84 million. That is 39.4 million TT dollars that they have received from the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility following the heavy rainfall that occurred in Trinidad and Tobago earlier this month. So while budget was going on, I was in and out of Parliament because during that time, we had a lot of widespread flooding and a lot of damage and so on. I remember there was a lady, Miss Teresa Lynch, who was swept away by floods in La Pastora in Lopino, another life lost. Can we please, in honor of her life, ensure that these things do not happen again? The Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, my partner Faris, they told us that there were 75 incidents of flooding. You believe that? 75 incidents in the whole country. So that is to tell you how out of touch they are with reality. But I come back to the power of people. And in this democracy, Trinidad and Tobago, I want to take this opportunity to thank those people from the media who have been covering the marooned residents in Valsain South and St. Augustine South, and the Valsain Residents Association, who have also been outspoken. When Victor Roberts and them burn tires, when they speak out and they march from Point Fortin to Port of Spain, I want to tell you there is power in the voice of people. And we, as citizens, must all take a stand. We must stand for our country, we must stand for our children, and we must stand against PNM incompetence and neglect. Thank you.
One freedom.
Everybody crying out for democracy. Now it's time to take a stand, yeah.
Come on! Cause this is the revolution. The people's revolution.
Oh boy, this girl is on fire. The PNM lack honor, they lack character, and they lack integrity. They tell you they'll do one thing when they do another. The video is not in sync with the audio. Thank you, of course, the Right Honorable Member of Parliament for St. Augustine, K Ameen. Our next speaker is a well-known attorney at law, a defender of the rights of the people. He continues to fight the oppression of this government, both inside and outside of the Parliament. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Member of Parliament for St. Augustine, for Shoguanas West, the Honorable D Rambally.
Revolution. I wanna hear everybody sing. Everybody sing freedom. Man and woman sing freedom. Everybody sing freedom. Everybody sing. As we move in this people's revolution, my brothers and sisters, let's all walk together as one. This revolution is about restoring our democracy.
Good evening, UNC family. I would first start off this evening by saluting our honorable leader of the opposition, our leader of the United National Congress, our political leader, Mrs. Kamala Persad-Bissessar, Senior Counsel. I want to, of course, in saluting her, also salute all of our speakers this evening. Powerful speakers, starting with Mr. Victor Roberts and moving on to Ms. Khadija Ameen, who are appearing here tonight, and I know we have an action-packed program. I want to especially applaud my warrior UNC brother, Mr. Victor Roberts, from lighting 1,000 diyas on Diwali night to taking the fight. And he has his special brand, the Dogla brand, that he is competing with Anil Roberts. So I have to give Anil some heckle when I see him. But I want to call Victor Roberts my bhai. So bhai, very well done. I also want to applaud my sister, my behin, my sister MP, Ms. Khadija Ameen. She has been fighting, of course, in the trenches and out of the trenches, making sure that everybody gets their just deserve in terms of local government. So I truly commend her fighting spirits. I want to acknowledge, of course, the leader of the opposition, the brilliant, honorable leader, Mrs. Kamala Persad-Bissessar. And I want to say that it is her vision and her leadership that is keeping this country together right now. She has led, Mrs. Persad-Bissessar has led the charge to expose the Nelson Gate affair. She has led the charge to expose AG Limo affair. She was the one who spearheaded the opposition onslaught during the recent budget debate, where every parliamentarian, UNC parliamentarian, speaker after speaker, they stood like titans, like giants in the parliament, and they demolished this Dwenish budget. It is clear that this PNM budget was the worst budget in our nation's history. No vision, no plan, no innovation, no foresight, tax and spend, tax and spend. That is what the PNM is about. So the PNM, ladies and gentlemen, is under pressure. They are about to snap. They are infighting right now. They are divided. They are an unstable government. And what they have been doing in the very recent times, they were all hiding in Tobago like cowards. The worst government in our nation's history. And if you don't believe me, let's use one example. Let's start with just national security. The PNM's weakness and failure to govern has resulted in a national security crisis of epic proportions. Dr. Munilal yesterday coined the phrase that we are an unpoliced country. And I want to agree with him. The efforts by this government to ensure we are unpoliced have now led to very serious consequences. Citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, look at the headlines in our daily newspapers, and I hope they can pull it up on the screen. Look at those headlines. You have the Express. Rampage, says the Express. Newsday, homicide cops overwhelmed. Crime pandemic, says the Guardian. And these are the articles that you are seeing, the headlines. Murders cross 501, says Sunday Express. That was Sunday, today is Monday, and the murder toll is changing so fast. The last I checked, I think it was 504. It may have increased, I'm not sure. So it is changing so fast, the media houses could barely keep up. Imagine in an age of social media where information is instantaneous and events are recorded and reported in almost real time. Our major newspapers cannot keep a track of the number of murders, the amount of bloodshed in this country. Bloodshed caused by, of course, Rowley and his band of incompetent and weak misfits. Ladies and gentlemen, our nation is in crisis. We are on track to record the highest number of murders in the history of this country. Only recently, we had one of the bloodiest, brutal weekends, including a child's death. And with the killing of such innocents, do you know what the Minister of National Security had to say? Imagine a country, a community, a neighborhood, a family in deep grief and mourning over the senseless killings of an innocent child, and the only leadership and sentiments that this sleeping Minister of National Insecurity can offer is to say that this beautiful child was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Imagine Trinidad and Tobago is now a country where a child visits a playground. This malicious PNM government decrees that the child is in a wrong place and at the wrong time. Not the criminals, you know, the innocent child who went out to play. So this is a lesson in leadership, ladies and gentlemen. And it is a lesson also in compassion for our citizens. I want to ask the population a very frank question here tonight. If such a tragedy had occurred under the leadership of Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar, what, I ask you, would have been the reaction? There would have been on the part of the UNC, there would have been empathy. There would have been a compassionate response. Mrs. Persad-Bissessar would have herself gone to this child's home and comforted the family as only a mother of this nation could do. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the difference. She would have summoned her National Security Minister and her National Security Council. In the blink of an eye, she would have found solutions. She would have then summoned her Minister of the People and ensured that the family was supported in whatever way necessary. Today, what do we see? We see the Prime Minister and his National Security Council today, after many weeks, purportedly doing some work. They post up a singular picture, Dr. Megu. They post up the singular picture of them meeting, National Security Council meeting after however many weeks now. They now meet. But do you really think they summoned the Security Council because of the escalating crime? Or is it because the partying has finally finished in Tobago? Party done. The party done, and that is what you saw today. Not that they were interested in you and your children and the elderly folk and our women in society. So I am asking you, as I have asked the very frank question, compare, ladies and gentlemen, the PNM's wrong place at the wrong time crime response and the UNC's track record of compassion and action response. This is what the UNC stands for under the leadership of Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar. And that is why, my brothers and sisters, that the United National Congress would always be the better choice for this country of Trinidad and Tobago. Brothers and sisters, friends, citizens, can't you see? It is the PNM. It is the PNM being in government that they are in the wrong place at the wrong time. So how could that beautiful child be in the wrong place at the wrong time when he was simply playing with his friends? But I don't blame Minister Hines, you know. I don't. He is just a natural failure. So he can't help himself. But I want to blame Dr. Keith Rowley, who is a bigger failure, because he's the one, after one failure in the personality of Stuart Young, now he has moved on to an even bigger failure in the personality of Minister Hines, Minister of National Insecurity. Ladies and gentlemen, this brutal murder spree is not happening in a vacuum, you know. It is directly related to actions and inactions linked to this failed PNM government. I want to remind the population, it is Keith Rowley who boasted about going to the President's house to intercept the merit list from the then Police Service Commission. And that resulted in the collapse of the Police Service Commission. And this resulted in our country. We are still in the same state of affairs where we do not have a substantive commissioner of police. So you have a rudderless, a headless police service. Ladies and gentlemen, how do you expect the police service to fight criminals when you have the Prime Minister fighting and destroying the independence of the police service? Do you know what Fitzgerald Hines said recently? He said murders are increasing because criminals are changing their tactics. That is Hines, you know. This is our Minister of National Insecurity, you know. The criminals are changing tactics. Well, tonight, I want to tell Rowley and Hines, the people of this country is also changing their tactics. And they are saying, you and your band of failures, you need to demit office now. The people of this country are saying that they want to live in a country with safety and security. They want a government that takes crime seriously. They want the UNC, and they want the UNC led by Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar. But I want to touch a little bit on a puppet. And I say a puppet, but what I really mean is the acting top cop, Mr. Jacobs. Mr. Jacobs, anywhere you see Minister of National Insecurity Hines, you see Mr. Jacobs. And if you see Mr. Jacobs, you see Minister Hines. And I want to ask Mr. Jacobs, what really is his position in all of this? What is he doing? Why doesn't he ask Keith Rowley, where is the Art Forensic Science Center, which was promised to be built in 2020? Where is the expansion of the CCTV cameras? Where is the CCTV command center that they promised? Where is the forensic investigators they promised to recruit? Where is promise? They keep promising the women and our girls in the society. Year after year they promise that, and we don't know whether we're coming or we go in. You see, McDonald Jacob is happy. He is happy that the PNM is lying. That is lying to the population. They're lying to him. And he's fulfilling all these promises or failed promises on their part. And that is what we cannot understand. The latest, his response to that is we need to have bail legislation. We have to have some revised bail legislation. And I want to ask you, what utter nonsense is Jacobs talking about? Now, time will not permit me to get into the bail tonight, but what I want to say to you is that, you see, AG Amore does not have a good memory. So many years ago when he was the president of the Law Association, he objected to any revision to the bail laws in this country. And now he comes when he's the Attorney General and he's talking about revising bail legislation when the Privy Council give them one good cut skin. Right? That is what you are now seeing with these characters. But you see, I want to turn quickly to what is this revised bail legislation about? It is about taking away the attention from their failures in dealing with crime. And now they are trying at any step, any cost. They want to deviate, they want to detract you, they want to hoodwink you from the Nelson Gate. Nelson Gate, mark my words, it is the biggest scandal in the last 60 years of our independent nation. That is what Nelson Gate represents in this country. And they are hiding from it. They will not say anything about it. Amore is saying subjudice. I have come out and I have asked Amore, I have said you are wrong as a matter of law, you are wrong as a matter of fact. And I have called upon him to prove me wrong. My brother attorney at law, Mr. Kyle Taklal Singh, who has been fighting in the trenches as well, he has called out Amore to show where is it that you can prove that subjudice applies to you. Mr. Martin Daly, eminent senior counsel, has also said that the rigors of the subjudice would not apply in this particular instance. So where is all this hiding behind subjudice? But remember, when he was found lying or misrepresenting before the Miami court, he adopted the subjudice principle and he had to break it himself to come out and put out a statement. And I expect with the prodding, with the pressure of the public, with the calls from the citizens to answer valid questions, that he will have to break that subjudice, that self-imposed vow of silence, and come out and answer. You see, Nelson Gate is the biggest crime which has been perpetrated on the democracy of this country. So it is the biggest crime to have been perpetrated on our criminal justice system. And it is perhaps the most glaring example of misbehavior in public office, of perverting the course of justice in the Commonwealth. So I said it last week and I will say it again tonight. Jacobs, do your bloody job. You need to go down by Rowley. You need to go down by Al-Rawi. You need to go down by Stuart Young. You need to go down by Sagram Singh. You need to go down by Minister Hines, all of them. Laptop, cell phone, iPad, everything. You need to seize it. And you know you're calling upon them to do that. And he's not doing it. And what did we see? We see a newspaper report Al-Rawi phone has already been cleared. We can't get the messages where Nelson lawyer was messaging him on WhatsApp. Imagine that. So ladies and gentlemen, that this scandal is a scandal that stinks to high heavens. And that is one thing I can tell you. Under the leadership of Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar, we will not leave Nelson Gate alone. And I saw an editorial today in the Express, and the editorial says that there are too many pertinent questions which need answers. So I want to say, if it is the PNM government is afraid and they don't want to answer, I want to call upon them. The best way to account to the people, if you're afraid to give the answers, dissolve the parliament, and you need to call a fresh elections in this country. Let the country replace you and all your weak and incompetent cronies, Rowley. So this is something that we have to look at. Now I want to say that we will not bolt from this issue. We will not run from this issue. In fact, the opposite. We are going to bolt these questions and these issues to their chest. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight is a rallying call. Tonight is a rallying call. You have heard from Victor Roberts. You have heard from Khadija Amin. We must be in their faces at every turn with this issue in Nelson Gate. We must speak out. We must rise up. We must fight for our sovereign democratic state. And we must never surrender our democracy to that band of tyrants, to that PNM. We must never surrender. You see, democracy is a very fragile and tenuous thing. Many countries have lost their democracy because governments have overstepped little by little. And before long, when the population was turning a blind eye, finally when they took stock and they observed what was going on, they realized they were living in a dictatorship. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the doorstep to that dictatorship. What we require now in our country's history is a courageous group of patriots to stand against the evil forces of tyranny embodied in the PNM. You do not have to search very far for those patriots. These patriots can be found right here in the house of the rising sun. These patriots led by our general, our shield maiden, our Joan of Arc, Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar, they are all ready to fight and defeat the PNM. We shall release the grip of this PNM Gestapo on our country. We shall salvage what is left of our democracy, and we shall lead the way to a better, more prosperous Trinidad and Tobago. We must fight for our freedom by all means necessary. I say to you tonight, I, D Rambally, Member of Parliament for Chaguanas West, I am UNC and proud. All of you, you are UNC and proud. And together, we are all UNC and proud. And we shall overcome this PNM tyranny. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome to the revolution.
People crying out for justice. Some of them crying out for freedom.
Want freedom.
Everybody crying out for democracy. Now it's time to take a stand. Yeah.
Come on! Cause this is the revolution.
Thank you, MP Rambally. Very fiery with only facts, my brother. Our next speaker is a person that everyone familiar with, a man of integrity. He is a very dynamic member of Parliament for Oropuch West. It is my privilege to welcome to the UNC virtual platform, Dave Tancoo.
The people's revolution. This is the revolution. I wanna hear everybody sing. Everybody sing freedom. Man and woman sing freedom. Everybody sing freedom. Everybody sing.
As we move in this people's revolution, my brothers and sisters.
Thank you very much, Gordon. Political leader of the United National Congress, Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar, members of Parliament, senators, members of the National Executive, online viewers, including our international viewers in England, Kapil and the team in Canada, Vida and Angie and others in New York, and others across the globe and in this gathering here tonight. I wish you a good night. Having heard the fire from my presenters here tonight, I hope that I can live up to that legend. Ladies and gentlemen, this PNM gang has lost all morality. They have lost all moral authority to govern this country. It feels like every single morning when I wake up, I have to read on social media about some illegal activity that this Prime Minister, Keith Christopher Rowley, is presiding over. It is as if to be a minister in this PNM government, you have to be corrupt, arrogant, greedy, incompetent, abusive, insensitive, a pedophile, a liar, an absolute crook, or a combination of all of these characteristics. And what is worse is that the more of these nasty qualities you have, it seems that the higher you could rise in the PNM. We have a Prime Minister who is a known liar. From Email Gate to Petrotrin Gate 1 and Petrotrin Gate 2 to INS Gate to Police Service Commission Gate and much, much more. We have an Attorney General who lied in court in writing, signed and notarized and was thrown out of a case that he is in charge of as AG. That's Amore Gate or Limor Gate. We have a former Attorney General who is reported to have given a confessed criminal a bribe. My brother before spoke about it. That's Nelson Gate, and you have much more to come out regards to that. And while I'm on that, I want to ask former Attorney General Faris Al-Rawi a question. Asking for a friend. Residents of San Fernando have been protesting about the haste with which Minister Faris Al-Rawi and his colleagues have been pursuing the construction of homes in an area identified officially as a school zone. I have been provided with a photograph, it's on your screen now, of an adjacent parcel of land near the waterfront in San Fernando. It is rumored that this parcel of land belongs to a well-known South-based PNM family, and with the current waterfront development taking place under Minister Al-Rawi, that the land will soon become a gold mine. The rumor is that the housing development being pursued close to that particular piece of land can facilitate the relocation of persons squatting on that private piece of land that you see there, allowing the landowner to reap billions in value without having to spend a cent from their own pocket. I'm asking for a friend. If any PNM minister has any pecuniary or familial connection to this land, because, ladies and gentlemen, we may have another land gate on our hands. My colleague before spoke about the other minister, Mr. Sleepy. Mr. Sleepy. And that we will have to call that Behind's Gate. Ladies and gentlemen, you're not safe in this country. It doesn't matter if your house is burglar-proofed, if you have security cameras, if you have dog, if you have cutlass, if you have whip, if you have stick, if you have gun, you're not safe in this country. And while that's happening, the minister's sleeping because he has 24-hour security. You think that's right? Behind's Gate. There's a minister of nothing works. My colleague spoke about it before, Khadija Ameen. You have a minister of nothing works. Well, he alone by himself about 20 gates, from Seabridge Gate to Paving Gate to Pothole Gate to Flood Gate. They have had Stepdaughter Gate, EBC Gate, Malcolm Jones Gate, Border Gate, Delsey Gate, NGC Gate, Child Abuse Gate, and more coming. There are more gates in this government than Bhagwan Singh and Rupnarine put together. You know, just a soap opera, some of you may recall, it was called Scandal. The lead character, if you all will recall, was a lady called Olivia Pope. And every week I used to put on the TV just to look to see what the new scandal is. You know, that is what we feel like today. Every day when you put on the TV some new scandal, that is completely unacceptable. And worst part about that is these scandals are not free. Billions of your dollars have been spent by this government to commit corruption and to cover up corruption and nepotism. Conservative estimates done by a professional has estimated that this country has lost to corruption over $5.2 billion every single year. That works out to more than $36 billion under this PNM government. And that has been the responsibility of one man. Call Imbert. Over the last 7 years, over $400 billion have been spent. I have maintained from time immemorial, from the first chance I had, that the shortage of money has never been the problem for this government. They have always had money. They have always had money. They inherited billions in the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, billions more in foreign reserves, billions more in taxation revenue streams, and in dividends to be collected from state enterprises and companies left there by Kamla Persad-Bissessar and her administration. Every scandal that we just spoke about, every gate that has emerged has been funded by you, taxpayers. The money spent in corruption and to cover up corruption should have been spent to improve the quality of life, to improve your standard of living, invested in activities that are designed to create an environment in which businessmen will be motivated to invest. That should have been the priority of this government since 2015 when they took office. A healthy, growing economy, ladies and gentlemen, translates to more and better jobs. It translates to better government revenues, improved standard of living, and yes, lower crime. And this has a multiplier effect because as you fix the economy, everything goes over, everything grows, and in the growing, it continues to push the economy forward and grow more and more and more. This is what the Kamla Persad-Bissessar administration did between 2010 and 2015, despite the global and economic crises that we have faced locally. But you see, what is required is leadership. A deliberate policy is common sense, Identify where you want to go, when you want to get there, and what you have to do every single day, every single month, and every single year to get there. That's how you need to get this thing done. You need a policy and you need a plan. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is where Imbert has continuously failed this country. Because instead of confronting his shortcomings and finding avenues to fix the problem, he continues his arrogant, flippant attitude, blaming everyone for his failure except himself. I have reached a point, ladies and gentlemen, where every time this Minister of Finance opens his mouth, I feel like telling him, God forgive me, HYMC. Hush your mouth, come. Last week, Finance Minister called me Imbert in responding to concerns raised by business owners about the substantial delays in the government's ability to pay VAT returns, claimed, and I want to quote, "We have an inefficient VAT system. The problem with the VAT system is compliance." Well, let me show you how much rubbish that is, coming from this man. That's why I tell him, hush your mouth. Let me tell you how much rubbish that is. According to Imbert, he could not pay the VAT refunds to people who obeyed the law and paid VAT because some others didn't submit their VAT returns. That makes sense? He can't pay the people their money because somebody else didn't pay theirs. That makes absolutely no sense. It's foolishness. What Imbert has been doing as a result is victimizing law-abiding citizens, victimizing businessmen who have paid their VAT on time. And while he's doing that, victimizing these people, he is giving his friends a blight with VAT amnesties on a regular basis. So he is promoting the breaking of the law. Ladies and gentlemen, if you know you owe the people their money for VAT refunds, stop playing games. Pay them their money. They should not be made to suffer because you, Mr. Imbert, has failed to prosecute the persons who refuse to pay their VAT refunds. I challenge the minister tonight, if he's awake. I challenge the minister tonight to make public the name of every single VAT offender and an explanation as to why Minister Imbert and his government have not prosecuted these people to ensure compliance. You can't be victimizing people who are following the law and giving your friends a blight. That is wrong. Where else in the world does this happen? Where people who follow the law are victimized by our government. And we paying them? That's wrong. But the hypocrisy doesn't end there. This same man, called Imbert, then says that the government's policy is to pay out arrears to smaller enterprises first. According to Imbert, and I quote again, I am painfully aware of the problem of delayed VAT refunds and how it affects small businesses in particular, because in some instances, $100,000 is make or break for business in terms of VAT. He knows it causing problem, and he's still not paying them. That is malicious. That is bad mind. That is hate. That is evil. That is despotic. That is a shame. Minister Imbert, do the honorable thing. Resign and go. Resign and go. But it seems that because corruption and nepotism and mismanagement is something that your government loves, they will hold you to it, they will keep you. Now, when that distraction failed to take away from the public attention from Imbert's spectacular loss in court on the basis of his vindictive prosecution of former governor of the central bank, D Rambally, Minister of Finance was then in a more desperate need to change the public narrative. So on Wednesday last week, he did the impossible. This man, Minister Imbert, tried to take credit for the higher than expected revenues from the energy sector in the last few months of fiscal 2022. According to the reports, the minister boasted that total revenue for 2022 was almost $11 billion more than it was initially estimated to be. This must be the only finance minister in the world who would have been so wrong as to misunderstand and misaverage the revenue of a country by not 1% and 2% and 3%, by 25%. That is absolute incompetence. And this is not the only time and the first time. He has been consistently wrong in every estimate that he has made. As the leader of the opposition has said before, his maths not mathsing, his brain not working. Plain and simple. He has been consistently wrong. Ironically, while admitting that the increased revenue was a direct result of higher energy prices on the world market on the one hand, Imbert then shamelessly claimed that his government had almost balanced the budget and had now managed to reduce the budget deficit to $329 million. Well, let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. Imbert have nothing to boast about. The fact is that the only reason that this country is seeing higher revenues today is because of the high energy prices driven by the Ukraine-Russia conflict. That had nothing to do with his government. It has nothing to do with anything this Minister of Finance has done for the last 7 years. The only economic policy that this minister knows is tax, 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 tax. This is like being back in school and you're watching the board. Tax, 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 and nothing else. Now we have money. Now we have money. You have $11 billion more than he estimated. God alone knows what he's going to do with that. God alone knows what he's going to do with that. The fact, too, is that oil and gas production today is lower than it was under when Kamla Persad-Bissessar was in government. Given the closure of Petrochemical and the failure to properly incentivize energy companies, the initial adversarial posture of the government against multinationals, it is obvious that any higher revenues being seen now is being seen despite the blunders of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, led by Keith Christopher Rowley and this Imbert fella. And boasting about balanced budget when the government owes billions in tax and VAT refunds, when multiple salary negotiations are still outstanding for periods long since gone, owing billions more to contractors and service providers, boasting about balanced budget then is foolish. It is an obvious attempt to fool the population, to deceive the population into believing that somehow something positive is happening, when the truth is that this is absolutely impossible right now under this government. Boasting of a balanced budget at a time when central bank earlier this month, October, revealed that the threat of a growing welfare dependency syndrome and the fact that social protection systems that exist right now are dwindling. It's not reaching the people it's supposed to reach. Well, I want to warn this minister that this energy boom that he's benefiting from is short term, and prices will return to their normal levels soon. And when that happens, we will end up in a crisis, ladies and gentlemen. Not surprisingly, the minister has said nothing, not a word, about what the government is going to be doing with regards to borrowing, because he had planned to borrow $14 billion in fiscal 2022 just a few weeks ago. I want to ask Minister Colm Imbert tonight, WTF? Where are the funds? Tell this country exactly how they will benefit from this windfall. What are you going to do with this unplanned $11 billion? What are your priorities? Will you now meet your financial obligations to businesses? Will you settle outstanding wage negotiations? Or will you continue to fund the corruption and the cover-up of corruption which we have seen and witnessed over the last 7 years? Ladies and gentlemen, having spent the last 4 days in flood waters, sometimes up to my waist, and seen the rural neglect of my constituency and the state of the national infrastructure where citizens cannot get water for 2 and 3 weeks continuously, where criminals run this country, I am of the view that we cannot continue like this. This government has proven that it cannot run this country, no matter if they have billions in their hands in expected or unexpected revenue. The time for change is now. The time for change is now. You have it in your hands, ladies and gentlemen. It is time to stand up. I believe in the spirit of our people, our patriotism, our ingenuity, our strength, our commitment, our dedication, our potential. United, we can restore and rebuild this country. We have done it before, and we will do it again. My name is Dave Tancoo. I am the Member of Parliament for Urupuch West, and I am UNC and proud. I thank you very much, Dave.
Welcome to the revolution.
People crying out for justice. Some of them crying out for freedom.
One freedom.
Everybody crying out for democracy. Now it's time to take a stand. Yeah.
Thank you, my brother, Dave Tancoo. Rowdy, we have all the money gone. You and your government are supposed to explore and develop the state resources and give it back to the people according to their basic needs, not for your own personal gains. And our Member of Parliament is correct. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is a man who needs no introduction. He served as the deputy political leader and chief whip in the parliament. He's a fiery person. He has wisdom and everything else with him. Please welcome to the UNC virtual platform, Member of Parliament for Point-a-Pierre, the Honorable Dr. David Lee.
Cause this is the revolution, the people's revolution. This is the revolution. I wanna hear everybody sing. Everybody sing freedom. Man and woman sing freedom. Everybody sing freedom.
Thank you, Azari and Kuhn, our chairpersons for tonight. Good night to everyone here, this massive crowd at Imbert building here. I'd like to say good night. Good night to my political leader, the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bissessa, my parliamentarian colleagues. I'd like to say good night to one of our great lawyers, Kyle Taklal Singh, that is here tonight. Our condolences at his disaster of his home burning down a couple of weeks ago. I would like to say good night to my massive crowd from Point-a-Pierre, my people, my family here tonight. Journey John told me to bring people, so I brought them here tonight. Tonight I joined the United National Congress virtual platform to send a message to all citizens of this nation. Tonight, wherever you are, we can all agree that Trinidad and Tobago, as we know it, cannot survive much longer under this wicked PNM. This is no longer about partisan politics, but it is about the people. It is about the people of this nation who, regardless of economic, social, or religious differences, are now facing growing peril and turmoil from a wicked government that simply does not care. Do you agree? The evidence that this government doesn't care is clear. It is time to put a stop to the malicious erosion of our liberty, prosperity, and opportunity, and our democracy in our country. A government of smoke screens that hide the chaos in our energy sector, and tonight I'll touch a bit on the energy sector because it is critical. In 1 month's time, we will be 4 years on November 30th that this wicked government has shut down our refinery and Petrotrin. and I'll talk about that later. They want you to believe that as a government, they have turned around our energy sector. They want you to believe that the many joyrides of Minister Young as Minister of Energy to energy conferences around the world represents progress. They want you to believe that meetings with Maduro in Venezuela will magically bring gas to our country. They boast that they have turned around the energy sector from 2015, yet how come they have never increased oil and gas production since 2015? It is only under the Kamla Prasad-led government that we saw an increase in our oil production and gas. They boast that they save the energy. They boast that they save the energy sector. Yet they have the record for the most plant closures in history in Point Lisas. Businesses are leaving our shores, going to Guyana. They are now promoting NGC's profit. But what about, and I ask, what about that $240 million of wastage at NGC? And don't forget the Delcy Rodriguez visit during the COVID time. This country must not be fooled, misled, or mama guide into thinking that this nation's energy sector has recovered, performing or even stable based on the statements of Minister of Finance, Carl Imbert, that revenue from oil companies have doubled in the last fiscal year from $5.5 billion to $10.45 billion. Gas production is struggling to the point that the projection for the next year is the lowest in our history over the last 20 years. High revenues does not mean growth. The Minister of Finance's own review of the economy of 2022 demonstrated that every single aspect of our energy sector was in decline and contraction. Exploration has been down, drilling down. Petrochemical production is also down. What have the citizens who are the real owners of the oil and gas of this country received for the increase in revenue? The Prime Minister Rowley has told oil companies in the past that he represents citizens of this country who are the shareholders in our energy sector. And we ask tonight to Rowley, where is our dividends? If oil revenue doubled beyond what was expected, why did the government remove the subsidy? Why did they put a cap on the subsidy? Why didn't they introduce the fuel grants immediately as the price increased, as they promised in the budget? And I'm sure my leader will talk about that later. Yet again, Minister Young attends another energy conference in Egypt. And I'm sure tomorrow night, I understand they have a meeting in Chaguanas, called somewhere in the Signature Hall. And you know who owns Signature Hall? A man named Bullet. And we all know Anil Roberts has talked about Bullet. So I am sure in tomorrow morning show of Anil, he'll talk about the Bullet in Chaguanas East, that the PNM is having a meeting tomorrow. And we'll hear more about that. Over the past week, we have seen the Minister of Energy highlight that Minister Young was accompanied by the ministry's permanent secretary to Egypt. Yet on a trip to Europe, which he went with Rowley, no mention was made of public servants attending with the Prime Minister and Minister of Energy. Were the public servants and the ministry officials left out on the trip in Europe because the government had some clandestine deals to get done within the energy companies? Without these professionals, who would have guided the Prime Minister and the Minister of Energy in the nation's best interests? In 2017, both Young and the Prime Minister crashed Point Lisas when they negotiated high gas prices with the energy companies in Houston without ministry officials. The government must tell the population, excluding the gas price, what were the incentives that they promised BP in London the other day. Are we seeing another Houston 2.0? I want to turn to Petrotrin here tonight, and I want to take my time. In 30 days' time, this country would mark the 4th memorial of the death and burial of Petrotrin. On November 30th, 2018, this government destroyed the fuel security, our energy security, and forex reliability of Trinidad and Tobago when they shut down Petrotrin. September 22nd, 2005. Malcolm Jones Petrotrin Board, September 22nd, 2005, enters into a deal for WGTL. The PNM likes to tell the population that Petrogen was debt burden, but it is on this day, in September 22nd, 2005, that Petrogen was placed in billions of debt under Malcolm Jones. On October the 8th, 2015, 1 month after general elections in 2015, Malcolm Jones was appointed to the Energy Standing Committee chaired by Prime Minister Rowley. On March 2nd, 2016, the following year, the civil case against Malcolm Jones for his decision on Petrogen was discontinued by the Prime Minister Rowley government based on the advice of King's Counsel, Vincent Nelson, and we know the name Vincent Nelson. On March 23rd, the same month, 2016, Malcolm Jones resigns from the Energy Committee chaired by Prime Minister Rowley. On January 23, 2017, the following year, the Minister of Finance, Imbert, tells the Energy Conference that Petrogen, hear this, is the country's best chance to reduce the decline in oil production. So Imbert was in favor of Petrogen in 2017. August 28, 2018, Petrogen Chairman Wilfred Esme said the board recommended shutting down the refinery and retrenching the workers. September 4th, 2018, right here in Marabella Community Center in my constituency, September 4, 2018, Prime Minister Rowley tells the country he's not closing down Petrogen. If you miss, and you know the famous thing, if you're opening the refrigerator and you're closing it, he's not shutting down Petrogen. September 16, 2018, Petrogen Chairman Espinay said that all the workers going home, all. 2 weeks after, when Rowley said he's not shutting down Petrogen. November 30th, 2018, in 1 month's time, 4 years since Petrogen, by this wicked government, shut down our Petrogen. September 20th, 2019, Imbert, Minister of Finance, announces in Parliament that the Patriot Energy, OWTU, will win the bid for the refinery. November 8, 2019, Prime Minister Rowley in a local government election meeting says he will stand with OWTU to get the refinery. July 16, 2020, Prime Minister Rowley on an election campaign, 2020, July 16, says we are ready to sign the refinery over to OWTU. October 31st, 2020, patriotic bid OWTU was rejected by this government. January 19, 2020, 2021, the second patriotic bid was rejected. So I have shown you a timeline from 2005 with Malcolm Jones with WGTL right up to 2021. This government has been fooling this nation and OWTU over the last 5 to 6 years. They have played the fool with our refinery. And you know what is interesting? In Guyana, on the Guardian, the 18th to the 10th, 2022, Guyana is seeking interest in establishing their own oil refinery for, you know what? For their national security purposes. We had that. I see time is not on my side here tonight. I want to talk about Nyquan. Nyquan was a product, came out of the same WGTL. March the 8th, 2021, Nyquan is opened by Prime Minister Rowley, who hails it as a resounding success. March 8, 2021. 17th of March 2021, Guardian reports that Nyquan facing production problems. CEO Ainsley Gill says they are facing teething problems. 7th April 2021, less than a month, an explosion at Nyquan, which rocked the fence line communities of Marabella and Gasparillo and Pointe-a-Pierre. And up to the day, Up to today, we cannot get a justification report on what caused that blast. And we saw on the 19th October this month, Nikon publishes an advertisement in the papers saying that they are ready to restart the plant, my brothers and sisters. And we have been calling for that report to be made public in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. And we are yet to find any solutions or any answers. I want to tell the Minister of Finance here tonight, there is no such thing as MP Tancoo said, almost balanced. There is no such thing as an almost succeeding. His entire 7 years as Minister of Finance has never been one of succeeding. No other minister has done this country a grave injustice and disservice like the Minister of Finance, whose sole responsibility has been to deliver growth for our country. Yet he has failed time and time over the last 7 years. Minister Imbert, as Dave Tancoo said, besides losing in the economy, he's now also losing in court constantly. He has lost more than any other finance minister. So he has lost to Jawala Ramran, and the country will be paying millions, the taxpayers will be paying millions of dollars. I want to say this wicked government. Today I read in the papers that came out online on the 31st of October 2022. And the headline is State to Compensate an Ex-Employee of the Equal Opportunity Commission for Breaches of Her Right, the ex-CEO. They fired the ex-CEO under this government, and I know the individual, I know the person. And the person has been working as a CEO of Equal Opportunity Commission since 2011 under us, under the Kamala-led government. And she was fired and terminated in 2021 by this wicked government. She took them to court, and her great lawyer, Anna Ramlogan, won her case today. So I wait to see if they're going to challenge it again. As my time is coming to an end, I want to say a little bit about the scrap iron industry. The scrap iron industry, at least 50% of that scrap iron industry comes from Claxton Bay in the constituency of Point-and-Pare. And I'm asking the Attorney General, why is it taking 6 months to find a solution for the scrap iron industry? He has told us he has shut it down to give him 6 months' time to pass legislation. It's been over close to 3 months, and we are asking to bring that legislation with haste to the Parliament so we can discuss it and get that economy, that industry going again for the people of Point-and-Pare. I want to say a little bit about Rowley, and it's going to happen tomorrow. Tomorrow, the PNM is having a public meeting in Chaguanas by bullet. Before they come clean on the Nelson Gate and the millions wasted, brace yourselves for tomorrow for some lies on the UNC. And the Prime Minister will be buffing everyone for everything that's going wrong in Trinidad and Tobago except himself. Each time, his escape strategy is to bully, whine, wave, dance, shake his head, bulldoze his way out of shouting, screaming, and playing more vexed than everybody else. And we are telling this country, we're fed up with that, Rowley. We're fed up with that. So as I end here tonight, as I come to a close, tonight I want to demand justice, equality, equity, and accountability for two major issues in my constituency of Point-and-Pare. Two of the divers who tragically lost their lives in Paria are from Point-and-Pare. As the MP, I'm calling on this government to give all the support of the Commission of Inquiry so these families can get answers and justice. Another major hindrance in my constituency faced each day is our roads. How much more protests to have that the roads must be repaired? How many more letters must I write and beg Sinanan and the local government minister for help? We pay taxes just like those in the PNM area, and we deserve to be treated equally. The roads in Point-and-Pare need repairs. This PNM government is desperate. They know that they lack the ability to take this nation forward. They know they lack the political will and intellect to provide a better country. And as a result, they will revert to any measure possible to stay in office and hide their failures. We will not be intimidated by their tyrannical antics. They will try to blemish and silence us, but we are not afraid. They have tried to come at me, but I am not afraid. Today I thank our leader. Today I thank our leader, our members and my constituents of Pointe-a-Pierre for their support against the attack of this government. I will not be distracted, deterred or even intimidated from undertaking my role to stand up for my constituents against a government that continues to place our population under significant socio-economic burdens. The sun will rise again, my brothers and sisters, and the UNC and the Honorable Kamla Persad-Bissessor will rise and be your next Prime Minister for good governance in our country. I say good night and thank you.
If you cut me, you go see blood. And if you squeeze me, you go feel the love. We are one people under the sun, one nation under the law. So who feel the black? Who feel the white? I don't know. But it's set till tomorrow night. Who feel the wrong? Who feel the right? Come and go. And all who feel the too bright, let me jump up, let me wind up, party non-stop. Ramage Dingole Kelkete, we come to play mass. Every creed and class, don't let nothing pass. La Carreti TV, all the love inside away.
First woman Prime Minister, first woman Attorney General, first woman to chair the Commonwealth of 54 nations, first woman opposition leader. Welcome KPP Plus, solid everywhere.
La Carreti TV, all the love inside away.
Thank you very much. Good evening, UNC family. I can't hear you. Good evening, UNC family. And friends and others. I always tell you the others are listening too. They don't miss out at all. Every Monday night, they're hooked on. I told you the week before when I spoke, before I even reach home from this meeting, they're already texting each other, commenting on what we say. So let them listen, because we will teach them how it is to have good governance in this country. As we share our thoughts, our ideas, our commentaries. And of course, it's not just for us to come and complain. I've been telling you that. But it's for us to also share things that can be done, ways in which we can better govern this country so that every citizen will feel safe. Everyone will have a good quality of life. And that's why we come to you in these meetings to share with you. So, to UNC family and all others hooked on, good night. Welcome back. Last week we took a break, but we were very busy in the Diwali celebrations. And this year, as I attended Diwali Nagar, it was one of the largest I've seen. Massive numbers of people were there. So welcome back. Before I move on, I want to say congratulations to Dylan Carter, flying the red, white, and black, making TNT proud. Dylan in the swimming World Cup, he didn't win one medal, you know. He didn't win 2 gold medals. I am told by now his counting is 6 gold medals Dylan has won. So thank you, Dylan. And to the people of Tobago, let me congratulate you for your safe, enjoyable carnival that you had over the past weekend. So let's give them a round of applause to the people of Tobago. So much to say with so little time. So I'll move straight into some of the things I want to share with you tonight. Other speakers, I want to thank our speakers tonight, MP Khadija Ameen, MP Dinesh Rambally, MP Dave Tancoo, MP David Lee, and our brother Victor Roberts, we can't forget him, vibrant and alive as always. And let's thank our 2 chairpersons, Councillor Hazari and Councillor Kern. Thank them very much. Thank you so much. So, where are we today? And if I do not speak about crime tonight, I think we would be missing a lot. And I'm not just going to complain about the numbers, as I say. I will share with you some ideas to better increase security in our country. We are in turmoil. Those charged with protecting and securing citizens, they have fled, they've gone in hiding. Last couple of weeks, you know, the Prime Minister had PIP. You remember that? He had accused somebody about PIP, and I didn't know what that was, but I found out. He went totally silent. He went MIA, missing in action for weeks. And then, you see today now, posting a photograph on the social media, missing in action. All of this going down, horrendous crime scenes. And he's missing in action. And what do they do today? Post up a picture to say, last week, the Prime Minister instructed that a National Security Council meeting be held today. So why you had to post last week he instructed for the meeting to be held today? You know why? It's a total photo of Papi show. That's what that was. And Munilal sent me a text me, he said that looked like a Halloween picture. Halloween. So I'm thinking, why is it Halloween? It says like the ghosts have all arisen. It is Halloween day and night. So they come to make you feel that they're working when there was no response over all these weeks, trying to fool us that you instructed last week. So why didn't have it last week? When the crime is spiraling out of control every day, why you instructed to do it today? And after you did it, I'll share it in a moment, nothing of substance has come out of that meeting. As I say again, the Halloween photo op that they put out. You remember recently when the Prime Minister made a very long speech calling crime a public health emergency. He could not even describe what that meant up to today. It just sounded nice. He grabbed it off the, cut and paste from on the internet. Sounding good, like we're doing something. Public health emergency. And nothing happened. So people lapped it up wholesale. Okay, public health emergency, let's deal with this thing. And this government goes on the internet. They copy and paste, as I told you, from a woke crowd. They then throw it out to the population, lapped up by some people with no understanding of how government agencies or civil society actually works. They are totally clueless. They had promised since 2015 a whole series of things they would do to fight crime. And today, after they've completed their national security meeting, the Minister Hines goes on national TV and he says, we're not doing this, we're not doing that, we're not doing the other. So what are you going to do? He says, heightened police presence. Isn't that what we've been saying for the past 7 years? You hold this whole meeting and you come up with what? What? Heightened police presence. What's new? Rehashed policy that is obviously not working, has not worked for the past 7 years. So, as I say, clueless. Our country is under siege. There are 808 murders and maybe counting as we speak. Heaven help us. This is not a cricket score, you know. This is not a cricket score at the stadium. This is at the Oval. These are murders, 508 murders under Rowley. This is not something to celebrate like a cricket score. This is something that we are all in mourning about. Over the past days, been rocked by an alarming surge in homicides. 30 murders occurred in just 1 week, and not a word from these people, not one word. Dinesh mentioned about sympathy. They have no compassion because they're all fully and heavily guarded. Total security details that they have. You know, I've been seeing as we go to Parliament, we will see, the MPs will tell you, when these ministers come to Parliament, there's heavy security brigades, you know. When we were in government, you didn't have every minister with security brigades. They have a few of them who are not in a portfolio that demands this heavy security detail. So one day I'm going to Parliament and I'm coming from the back to the Parliament. And that was the day when some great citizens were outside the Parliament protesting. And I saw the back gate of the Parliament open because the protest was outside the front gates by the Woodford Square. The back gate open, I see about 5 security vehicles pelting in there. I said, who is that boy? You know who it was? A fellow named Minister Young. Minister Young, with a heavy security detail. From what I recall, in all the years we've been in the politics, we've been in government, out of government, Prime Minister has a security detail. The Minister of National Security would have a detail, and the Attorney General. These are high risk, considered high risk portfolios. So what is the Minister of Energy doing with such a high presence of security personnel? When out on the road, it's thousands of people cannot live safely in fear. I read a story, and it is not that this is because of who it is. I read a story today where these ladies are saying they were upstairs in the third story of a building. Bandits home invading, and they jumped from on top 3 stories down on the ground. 3 stories down. And the woman says when she jumped down there, the fellow with the cutlass coming to hit her, and it's only as a car came with some bright lights that God saved her life. So everywhere you have these stories, a young child killed in the recreation ground. I saw Munilal talk about what is it, fast service or fast delivery. People getting gunned down in the cemetery. So you just roll over, because in cemetery already, it's fast delivery. And here it is, you have these ministers with these high-powered security details. So they are not scared. They could wait 2 weeks to come to talk about this security problems that we've been seeing over the last many days. And therefore, our country now, we talk about the pandemic. We've been talking about this before. We are in a crime pandemic. And whatever happened, by the way, we have here the failures, a string of failures in national security. You had the fraud accused, remember? Dylan, do you remember him? I wonder where he's gone. Don't hear about him again. I wonder what happened to Clarence Rambarat, by the way, just crossed my mind. I thought he was going to be the one-point man to put up some kind of, what was it, a land agency or something? Huh? Single point land, something. Where is he? Remember Mr. Young as well, his stepdaughter, charged with drugs and gun possession. What happened to that case? And then we have Hines always in the wrong place at the wrong time, falling asleep on himself in and outside the parliament. They also have a minister who was the subject of a special branch report concerning gang affiliations. What has become of that? What about the 3 government MPs who were allegedly associated with the DSS Susu? You see how we are not even a 7-day wonder anymore. It's like a 1-day and 2-day wonder that all these things get swept under, covered up. They have no idea how to stop crime. They do not have the political will to stop crime, because you know why? They are part of the problem. At best, they have the gimmicks and the distractions and so on. When Hines said over the weekend, nonsensical soundbites, nonsense, he said over the weekend that he had no evidence that the gangs have been marking children for death. What does that mean, Mr. Hines? Are citizens supposed to feel better because you said that? Rowley must fire Hines, but I don't think we should do that. We should do what Dinesh said. Just dissolve the damn parliament. Dissolve the parliament. Dissolve the parliament. And call the elections now, because we're calling on people to resign. These people are shameless, Total incompetent failures. So for us saying, resign, them fellas are going nowhere. All of them eat a food. Everyone is eat a food of them. Big security detail, flying up and down, as MP Lee tell us, all over the world. Prime Minister Rowley is being accused, and he must answer it, that when he's traveling, he asks for more than the allotted per diem. What is a per diem? That is money per day whilst you're abroad. Those things are fixed by policy. It's X amount. But we are told that when he travels, that he asks for more. More than. That's what says, eat a food. The whole bunch and gang of them eat a food. People are not resigning, And therefore, I think we are too complacent. We come here and we complain and we go on the Facebook. Oh gosh, we have all these keyboard warriors. Real keyboard warriors. And then people text and say, UNC, waste of time. Why are you all not marching? Why are you all not walking? Why are you not doing this? What are you doing? What are you doing? So it cannot be that MP Tancoo or MP whichever, and councillors here, MP Monilal, Victor Roberts, MP Dinesh David, whichever, it is all of us in this thing together. And we will not get out of it if you sit at home and you are armchair politicians and you are keyboard warriors. We will not get out of it. The criminals now are more emboldened than ever before. They know the PNM don't have a clue, so they know they won't be caught, and they can continue to do their crimes. You know, I saw an Express poll today where they were asking how many of you will be willing to be a witness to solve a crime, be a witness in a court matter. You know how many people said yes? You better know how many said no. 85% said no. And why? Because you don't feel safe. Even if you know something, somebody knows something, you do not feel safe to come forward. And all of that is because they've totally demolished something called the Witness Protection Program. Dinesh, you will know about that. They've totally squashed that. So people are not even safe to just be a witness. So we cannot even when we find the criminals, we cannot prosecute them. Cases are lost because witnesses are afraid to come forward. So much more, Dinesh spoke about it, forensics, all the things they had promised from since 2015, and they have kept not one of those promises. And they have come up with no new ideas of anything to solve the crime. So, you know, the PNM always likes to blame us when things they are guilty of, things that they are guilty about. That is their distraction, their misdirection, whatever. Now, David Lee told you tomorrow night they're having a meeting. I'm not going to tell you where because I don't even want you to go. So I was a little saying, David, why are you advertising these people meeting, boy? Bullet, meeting my bullet. And why? So you will see when they come tomorrow, all of that, we have taken the first day of the week, first working day, Monday. So they'll put their meeting on Tuesday. So let's give a round of applause. Our Monday virtuals have been a success. So when they come tomorrow, all they'll be doing, as one of you said it, buffing and distracting. Who said it tonight? MP Lee, you're the same fellow who talk about bullet, yes, about what will happen at that meeting tomorrow. So I want you to look at this graphic. Do we have the graphic with the crime numbers? Every time the PNM is in office, what happens? The crime? Always, always, there is a symbiotic relationship, crime and PNM. The two always up every time. So let's look at the graph. And you'll see there, since they've come into office, over 3,000 persons have been murdered. 3,000 persons there, and more, and counting. And you will see under the yellow, you'll see where we were. When we came into office into 2010, the numbers were very high, and we were able to bring those numbers down. So they come with all kinds of stories. In 2011, the government-led, UNC-led government, we brought the annual murder rate down to the lowest since 2004. Serious crimes were cut in half by our last year in office in 2015. And do you know why? We created opportunities. It's not just about putting more policemen on the beat or more boots on the ground. Yes, that can help. But obviously that's not working in the past 7 years. That on itself cannot work. You come back to say that's exactly what you're going to continue to do. So you will continue to fail. We will see, we did things. We created opportunities. We built the early childhood centers to give the children a place. We opened the gate. We opened the gate to create educational opportunities. We included tech work training because everybody can't be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. We need skills in the energy sector. That's why we created all this NESC, National Energy Skills Training. We put skills in construction sector, skills in technology. People can access good paying jobs. We created jobs. That is one of the answers. I am not saying that because you don't have a job, that gives you a right to be a criminal. I'm not saying that. But we must look at the holistic side of it. We must look at all the factors to see how we can do it. How did we do it? When we were there, I told you we brought it down. You see the graph yourself. And it was because of these things that we did. We created jobs. As Oprah Winfrey would say, you got a job. You got a job. Everybody got a job. Today, what has happened? You crushed the economy. Tancoo talked about Imbert coming out with how much more money he has, and yet still nobody's benefiting from the more money. How much is it? 10 billion more? 11 billion. 11 billion. When you came and you were crying before, you can't help people, you can't fix roads, you can't create jobs, you can't fix the schools, you can't fix recreation ground, you can't do anything. You say, oh God, boy, we don't have money, no revenue. Now you have 11 billion more and people still suffering. Fuel subsidy, you're right. Take away, cut down the fuel subsidy. Victor talked about the state of the roads, and I intend to raise it in Parliament on Friday. In the Clark Road, I have never seen such horrendous roadways, but you will tell me every constituency is the same. And because of these landslips, people cannot get out of the Clark Road because the alternative roads are also crushed. So if you try to avoid Clark Road and use the side roads to get out of that area, you cannot get out. A lady sent me a text telling me she lives up in the Rochard Road. She has access to go, she has to go to Point 14 every day to work. Let's pick up the Point 14 people are here tonight. And let's pick up everybody's here tonight, please. So she says she has to go to Point 14 every day to work. But she cannot get out. So if you have to pass one Satnarine trace, another trace in the Clark Road, all these are in sinkholes, I think you call them now. Crushed landslides. You can't even get out to go to work. You could imagine if there's a fire. How will the fire drill, the fire unit get in? You imagine somebody's calling for an ambulance, or that ambulance is going to get in there. Anytime that happens, we put the blame and the blood squarely in the hands of no worksman, Sinanan, and this PNM government. We give them that blame. Because you see, road is not just a road to go to work. The roads are for access, for people to access, to get in, to get out, to access fire, ambulance, even police. Everything else, if the roads are in a sad state, everything is going to be a bad state. So this is what I'm saying. We created jobs that help with bringing down the crime rate. We built police stations. We set up a national operations center. We procured vehicles for the police for their rapid response. And I told you before, when we got these vehicles, Rudy, what were they, yellow and blue? Yes, blue and yellow. These people hate the sunshine. Anything yellow, they just hate it. When everywhere in the world you see police vehicles, what? Yellow, more yellow, more yellow. That hate that you have in you is what is destroying this country. There is too much hate in these PNM people. And when you have that kind of hate, that brings that hate to everyone. It destroys a community. It destroys a nation. It destroys a country. And this hate that you have, that bitterness that you have, you are such a sad person. You all are sad people. What hate you must have in your life, how bitter your life must be, how sad it must be. That each time you speak, you're buffing somebody, you're shouting on somebody, you're complaining about everybody else, as you said it before, except yourselves. Hate will get you nowhere. That is why I tell you, we in UNC, we love you. That is why I tell you, that is why we put the people-centered policies in place. Because I have no hate in my heart. A person with that kind of hate, I say, when you wake up in the morning, you probably don't even want to get out of your bed. What a sad life that must be. Just think about it, Mohini. How sad that is. And then I see one or two people on their Facebook posting, these people get up every day of their lives with woke statements and with hate. Get a life, please. Get some love in your life. That is what the human heart and the human being is about. Get some life. And so we were getting the job done. These are just a few of the programs that we had. These were some. And what we see now, in contrast, murders per year. I told you in 2008 was the highest in our country, 550. Who was in government? The PNM. The second highest was 536 when? In 2019, PNM. And now, with the numbers this year, what I said, 508 and counting, they're going to break those other two records. Well, nothing to really record, but, you know. They're going to break that. We are heading into way above. And where are we? We have just begun November, 2 months to go. 2 months to go. We'll break that very grim record. So under Rowley, Dillon, Young, Hines, people are living in fear. Man, woman, child, young, old, business, not business. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are. No one feels safe in this country. They have left our country in a state of lawlessness. They have abandoned their major duty to the citizens of our country. The major job of any government is, first of all, security and safety. I'll tell you why. Before democracies like ours were established, and in other parts of the world, it was a sword that ruled. It was the law of the jungle. But when we introduce our democracies with the rule of law, then we are governed by the rule of law. And in those days, as I say, the man who, it was not brain, it was brawn. It was the sword and the gun that you could go in a man's house, shoot him down and take the house. You could go in a man's house, shoot him down, take his wife, take his children, pick up his furniture, pick up anything he worked hard and put there. That was the law then. The law was the law of the gun and the sword. But when we establish democracies such as ours and in other parts of the world, we replace it, as I say, with the rule of law. But this government, their job is to totally mash up, break down, and kill the rule of law. As you told us to go into a dictatorship, you said we were on the doorstep of a dictatorship. That's where we are going. Your first job as a government, elected by the people, of the people, and for the people, is to protect your citizens. And you have failed. You have totally failed to do that. Again, over the weekend, Mr. Hines said he understood the trauma and the fear that citizens are living under, and that government was working on solutions. You come Monday, big photo op, Halloween picture of National Security Council meeting, and you have nothing to tell the people, nothing to say how you're going to address this issue with the crime, except to say, as I told you before, heightened police presence, which you've said over and over and over again. I see my MP Munilal and Senator Jayanti have written to the JSC about security. They said they will do it. Have you got a date yet? No, it says very urgent. Yes, we set a meeting. We are calling upon you to convene the Joint Select Committee of the Parliament on National Security now. Now. We cannot have you as failed, incompetent persons sitting in a room like that we saw in that Halloween picture, and you alone sitting down to make decisions to deal with it, because you're failed. And if you continue to talk to only yourselves, you'll continue to fail. So convene the JSC of the Parliament on national security. Okay? So we move along. A nation under siege. I want to spend a few minutes tonight. We know what the situation is. Everybody feels it. Everybody feels unsafe. Let me share with you, in this midst of a crime pandemic, that I want to present some of our anti-crime plans. I presented these before, you know. Some will change, some will improve on, but I want to share with you. But that wicked government fooled the population as they did. They fooled them about the Petrochemical, they fooled them about so many things before the last election. And they really told you about the dates, eh? Just before the election, July 2020, Rowley said at a meeting they're going to give patriotic. Election come and done and gone, and then by October, rejected and thrown out. Before the election, they promised everything. They fooled people. The COVID pandemic, they used the COVID, they milked that COVID pandemic, and yet over 4,000 of our people died. Thousands others were blocked out of the country, and they are boasting about what they did for COVID. Lies. Always lies upon lies upon lies. So let me share with you some thoughts on our plans. We suggest, I'm not afraid to share it with them. They're so dotish, they won't even know what to do with these plans. They will not even know what to do with it. Not just in, but just who it is. Was it dotish and the dumb, Victor? Well, when you started, you said D. You said 3 Ds. I thought you were going to say dumb, dumber, and dumbest. But you did well in your description. So first of all, We need to restructure the Ministry of National Security. It is clear that the present system is flawed, that we cannot adapt to the demands of securing the nation with this Ministry of National Security. The Ministry of National Security, we suggest, should be split into two ministries, because this is one of the most serious issues facing our country, national security. I suggested we, and when I say we, these are the UNC plans, we in the UNC suggest that there be two ministries instead of one of national security. And this is based on best practice around the world. I didn't just come up with this because I'm so brilliant. Of course I am, but not so much. Not so brilliant. So I'm saying we should have two ministries. One, a Ministry of Home Affairs and a Ministry of Defense. The Ministry of Home Affairs will deal primarily with internal law enforcement and involve the focus on policing to ensure that the deterrent is provided and involving action, not ex post facto, not just after the crime, but also an action before the crime is committed. This Ministry of Home Affairs will involve law enforcement response, detection if the crime is committed, and apprehension. So, response, detection, and committal, okay, when apprehended. Such measures include all aspects of policing: surveillance, the use of electronic security, proper intelligence gathering, major aspects to internal security, such as fire and prisons, and this Ministry also of Home Affairs to include maintenance of law and order, safety, and security. The second ministry I propose, as we split national security, is a Ministry of Defense. Based on the critical need of protection of borders from the illegal entry of drugs, weapons, and human trafficking, and the worldwide increasing concern of terrorism, we need to have a specific ministry to deal with the security of our nation from these matters, which can cripple and is crippling our country. So the Ministry of Defense, as a newly established ministry, to help us deal with all these issues about trafficking, terrorism, drugs, illegal entry of drugs and guns. And I see this government is so hell-bent upside down, backward instead of forward. They're busy wanting to lock up people who have legal guns and take away the legal guns, but they have not a plan, not a policy, not a program to deal with the illegal guns, but they complain all the crime is about what? Illegal guns. Law-abiding citizens, you want to take away their guns because you have some vendetta against a fellow named Gary Griffith. I don't know what it is you have with Gary Griffith, but he was the best commissioner of police we've had in a long time. And if anybody knows anything about Gary Griffith, he's not going to rest until justice in his eyes is done. So you've seen he's filing all these matters, bringing to light a lot of things that the government had swept under the carpet and hidden in their transgressions, in perverting the course of justice, witness tampering. I mean, when Stuart Young went on that plane to talk to Nelson, what are you doing that for? Was he then acting AG? What was he? Isn't that witness tampering? To go and talk to a witness in a big matter, $1 billion matter, that's witness tampering. So they've engaged, as Dinesh told you, in many, what will seem to be illegal actions. Back to the Ministry of Defense then. This ministry will be based on new threats and clear and present danger that all nations face, both in border protection and problems encountered with illegal entry of weapons, drugs, and human trafficking. Ministry of Defense will focus on proper border protection. You remember the PNM in 2015, they promised something called a border protection something? What became of that? There's so many other things that Dinesh mentioned. Border protection, but you're crying up to now crocodile tears about, illegal entry of guns, drugs, guns, trafficking, and so on. What became of your big plan for this border protection unit? Nothing. So we will focus, this ministry will put a focus on border protection. Will establish a network to work with international allies in intelligence and joint operations, and also give emphasis on the critical aspect of policies to deal with terrorist activities, both in prevention and immediate action if it ever exists. I continue. Not enough to come here and cry, or for you to storm and cry. We must have the plans and the programs to deal with this horrendous situation. Ministry of Defense would incorporate the Defense Force, Immigration and Customs to handle border control again, and also with specific units to deal with terrorist activity. It will now come under this Ministry of Defense. So do you see what I'm saying? We have the Ministry of Home Affairs to deal with things that are happening on our soil, policing, protection, and so on. And the Ministry of Defense will have to do with everything with border control at all our ports, customs, immigration, at the various ports that we have as well. Bring in the Defense Force here. You know, we have a Defense Force, a great Defense Force. What do they do? Do we know what they do? Well, I'm just asking for a friend. They are great men and women, and I'll come back to them in a moment, the Defense Force. You remember when we were in government, we suggested that we will bring the police to work jointly with Defense Force, because I think it's about 5,000 men and women in the Defense Force who could assist where the crime situation is now so bad. And we had such a, they call it the soldier bill. I don't know if anybody remembers, and they refused to support it. You know how much better off we would be today if we had these joint forces working together. But no. Their plan was to put a management audit into the TTPS. Well, that came and went. They did the audit. They laid it in Parliament. I think it went to a joint select committee. Remind me, what happened? Like the pepper spray, gone. Disappeared, just more talk, and nothing happened. So, based on, because I'm saying of critical importance in this world now, the world we live in, and in our country, border protection, terrorism, cannot be placed under the Ministry of National Security, which is where it is now. It's not working, and it will not work, because that ministry is faced with the importance of internal law enforcement and protection of our citizens on a daily basis. Based on emerging trends in national security, especially the importance of border protection and terrorism, as I say, we restructured the Ministry of National Security into these two separate ministries. Mr. Rowley, when we're in government, would cry every day, come and cry, oh God, the partnership, the UNC-led government, we have too many ministers and ministries. Anybody did a check recently of how many he has? How many ministries they have? How many ministers in ministries, and giving these ministers in ministries portfolio assignments, units to function? Are they going to cabinet to report on their units? How's it working? So let's check that. It's not about having too many ministries, it's about having efficient and competent ministries to do the jobs. So as I say, we split into two, separate, to deal with primary crime prevention here, law enforcement, deterrence, hard targeting, intelligence, patrols, high visibility, policing, apprehension, and arrests. And the Ministry of Home Affairs, on the other hand, we will have the major arms of the Ministry of Home Affairs as follows. The TTPS, the TT Fire Service, the TT Prison Service, the Office of Disaster Preparedness, Cadets, SSA, National Security Training Academy, E99 Call Center, Community Comfort Patrols. What has happened to the Community Comfort Patrols? Why did you get rid of those in a time when every community is now under siege? They want to do it now? Visibility. Yes, those patrols, you're right, MP Tancoo. Those patrols was the heightened presence of policemen throughout the country, in the communities. The major arms we propose for the Ministry of Defense, the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force, including Army, Coast Guard, Air Guard, and the Reserves. Customs Division be removed from the Ministry of Finance. Why is Customs under the Ministry of Finance? Why? You have to think about that, eh? Because anytime something is somewhere in this government, is some friend or family is benefiting from it. Customs should be removed from the Ministry of Finance and come under the Ministry of Defense. Why? Where are all the guns coming from? Where are all the drugs coming from? Are they just being flown, dropped somewhere out of the sky? They are coming through those same customs divisions. And therefore, this is where you need to have that under a Ministry of Defense, who will be tasked with trying its best to avoid. Don't just happen at the port too now. I think that port has collapsed. They want to sell it. Well, I don't know if anybody will even want to buy it when they are done. Ports, key points where all these illegal things are happening. So I'm saying the TT Defense Force, the Customs Division, the Immigration Department also should be under this, again, Border Protection, Ministry of Defense, as both immigration and customs fall into the category of border security. Also under this Ministry of Defense, Transnational Organized Crime Unit. National Security Special Operations Group, also under this ministry. The Radar Center, the Counter Trafficking Unit, the Covert and Counter Terrorism Unit, all these to come under a Ministry of Defense for what? For border protection and security. I know you all like the bacchanal and so on, but I think we have to be serious if we want to tackle this crime situation. What I'm sharing with you here tonight has now become international best practice because of the importance of border protection, the global effect of terrorism, drug smuggling, human trafficking, illegal entry of weapons, and therefore you cannot box internal national security with border security. You can see it makes sense. It makes sense that you have specialized people in each ministry to deal with different aspects of law enforcement. This will give us a comprehensive system and structure to focus on securing our borders. Critical, but is not being done. It is boxed into a ministry that has to deal with policing, fire, prison, immigration, and so on. So here we focus on border protection as well as home affairs, internal protection. I told you I'll come back to the men and women, good men and women of the Defense Force. We propose, the UNC proposed, that the UNC government will increase the retirement age for all serving members of the Defense Force. Now, don't shout now because I spoke to you last time about the public servants and the increase in age. Bear with me a moment. We must enable the retention of experienced personnel within the respective arms of the military. Research has shown that our current Defense Force retirement strategy is not in keeping with international industry best practices. In the case of Canada and Denmark, the compulsory retirement age for regular forces and primary reservists is 60 years. In Norway, military personnel can serve a maximum of up to 40 years and up to the age of 60, whichever comes first. Australia has a general ceiling for commissioned and non-commissioned officers of what? 60 years. And this is based on the principle that assessment should be based upon a person's ability to perform the tasks of their job regardless of their age. Records show, for us here, the Defense Force, ours, 98% of the TT Defense Force personnel never continue after the age of 50 years, primarily because of the present retirement age. There's also a significant proportion of servicemen at the rank of Major Lieutenant Commander, Squadron Leader, who must retire at 47 years old. Can that ever be right? I think many of you sitting here must be even older than 47 and you're going strong as ever. I am one of those, by the way. Age is just a number. So here we have people who are retiring at 47 years age after they work for about half of an average work life. We should note that the Defense Force has been actually generating a large pool of young retirees who, in most instances, if not employed, they have to wait several years before they get the old age pension. So if you leave at 47, then you have to wait until, 65? The extension of these retirement ages would therefore assist in retaining experience across the force. The Defense Force has also had to compete against other services which offer much longer tenure for their members. So the TT Defense Force would have lost many potential recruits, as well as those who would have left the force to join another service. Why? Because they get a longer tenure in that office. The recommendation for an increase for all serving members of the Coast Guard, Air Guard, Regiment would allow the Defense Force to adequately meet its local, regional, and international commitments. Also, if we extend this retirement age, we get a wider, holistic human resource reform, which will include a more aggressive recruitment approach for all ranks, in keeping with the present default strategic HR plan. So, increase the retirement age there. The ones with the public servants, I talked to you about that before, about increasing that age. But here we have people, able-bodied men and women, at 47 years, dropping out of the workforce with tremendous expertise and experience. I move along to another suggestion. We will introduce, a UNC government will introduce new criteria for the selection of police recruits. All new recruits will now have to possess at least a diploma in policing. We will develop these diploma programs, undergraduate and postgraduate degree programs, and implement them where? We already have the facilities at the UWI DB campus. We can put those courses in place there. We will combine these academic programs with a part-time police apprenticeship practical program. Some of the new courses that we will offer for training will be law, governance, and the criminal justice system. You know, at a time, the police regulations in our country, if you were below a certain height, you could not become a policeman. Did you know that? So if you are tall enough, whether you have the brawn or the brain, you would qualify as against someone else. So I think some of you here would never have qualified under the old regulations. But here we are saying courses on law, governance, and criminal justice, neighborhood and community safety, understanding vulnerability, risk, and threats in society, technology in policing, policing, criminology, and victimology, practical forensics for policing, academic and professional skills for police research, methods in policing and security, investigation of serious and organized crime, cybercrime and forensic investigation, and accounting. So these are some of the courses that we can order at the undergrad. We can have training for persons who want to be recruited into the service at the university. So you have that massive structure sitting there, empty. Empty. All the money spent, nothing is wrong with it. The only problem they had, it was because it was based in a place called Penal. That was the problem that they had with it. They never understood the vision behind that campus. Our vision was that, look, we have the St. Augustine campus, which could only take X number of students. There was no more land around that campus. Everything, if you go there, you'll see it. Every piece of land is covered with a building. And our vision, our mission then was, listen, the people from up north, along the corridor, you could take 5,000 of them there. And then the people from Aruga, Mayaro, Point 14, all the way all in the south, where would they be? At the campus here in Penal. You know, that does two things. It offers more students an opportunity, but it also helps you with traffic, all the traffic heading north in the morning and heading back south and central in the evenings. So we also had that part of the vision, and decentralization, of course, that everywhere there will be places of access for whether it be education and whether for jobs and so on. So that's another point for recruiting and for training of persons who may have an interest in policing. Another area I want to talk about, and I know time is going against us, we have some suggestions for something known as pre-trial detention and bail reform. Now, before I get there, MP Dinesh mentioned the bail legislation that they want to bring back. I don't understand these people hard, and there's a stick break in their ears. You had the bail legislation. It did not work. You came back and asked us to extend it. We said, no, we wanted some changes and so on. And we said, okay, because you're blaming us as usual. So we gave you the majority you needed, and we renewed it, you know. MPs here will remember we gave them the votes, special majority vote, and say, okay, if you really believe it, go ahead. We passed it, and what happened? Still failed. Nothing. Nothing happened. Did not help with the crime. So what you come in again, rehashed policy, talk about bail legislation, so clueless, they don't have a thought. What bail, what are you going to do, lock up the whole country? Is that your plan, to lock up everyone? You think that will stop the crime? It will not. Because you had that law in place, and it did not work. I remember the now disgraced Attorney General Faris Alwari, when they came with this piece of legislation. He stood up in the parliament. We know where the gangs are. We know who the gangs. We have their names. We have their addresses. And up to they can't lock up one of them. They lie. They fool you. They distract you like they have the answers, but they have no answers whatsoever to anything. Not just about crime, but to anything in this country. So we want to suggest that the present jail bail system, many injustices here. To get out of jail under the system, you have to put up cash or other assets to pay a bond. It serves as collateral to secure that you do come back to court on the date of your hearing. If you come back to court, the court will give you back your money, but when? At the conclusion of the trial. How long does that take? Again, it's years upon years and upon years, regardless of the outcome. If they don't, you forfeit the money, you face additional penalties if you abscond and don't show up. This scheme benefits the rich, never ever poor people. It allows many defendants with financial resources to post a bond, bail out, go about their lives while they wait for trial. We're talking about pre-trial detention, meaning lockup, okay? Even when they face more serious charges than a poor person with a minor charge who cannot afford the bail. Defendants who remain incarcerated are often poor, some suffering from mental health issues, substance abuse issues. But bail is not intended to be used to punish people. That's not what bail is for. Bail is to secure that you come back to court on the date fixed for your hearing. And it must not be set higher than is necessary to preserve public safety and assure that the accused returns to court. Those who cannot afford bail end up paying up instead with time behind bars. That's how they get out. They stay behind bars. In our jails, in our cells, total overcrowding. Inmates are exposed to violence, filth, disease. Inmates can spend days in a bare cell without exercise, sunlight, or even human interaction. That is inhumane. That is inhumane. That is animal treatment for human beings. And you'll come and you're bleeding hearts, you're crying, no, they are criminals, lock them up, kill them. You don't work like that. In a society that has a proper respect for the rule of law, that has a proper respect for the dignity of the human being. We don't have that. Inmates may be forced to use buckets which remain in their cells for hours, empty the following morning, and then you'll have the bleeding. I say that's good for them. They're criminals. But they have not been found guilty. They have not yet been found guilty, and therefore this is why I say we can categorize those who should stay for pretrial detention and those who should be given some leniency. So, those conditions, jail overcrowding, acute psychological trauma. So if you were not a criminal before you went in there, when they lock you down there without bail, you become one by the time you come out. You become inhumane. You become like an animal. For those entangled in the system, the consequences are brutal. Many defendants are living paycheck to paycheck, but when you lock them down here, what's happening? No paycheck. No money for their families, for their children. If they can't show up to work, they get fired. They're stripped of the ability to be self-sufficient. If they have children, families, they cannot support them. They may lose access to housing and benefits. They may fall short on payments, leaving them cut off from families and other support systems. These pitfalls affect all defendants, regardless of whether you are innocent or guilty. And given the length of time it takes for the matter to be brought to trial, this is really, I'm saying, totally unconscionable in a society that has a proper respect for the dignity of the human being. So if you keep a low or medium risk person in jail, pre-trial, before trial, you are destabilizing them. You're taking them away from the things that made them low risk to begin with. And then they may actually increase, as I said, their likelihood of committing crimes. And so there are alternative approaches to pre-trial detention that are not only based upon your ability to pay. A growing number of jurisdictions are turning to individualized assessments, which consider the defendant's personal, financial, and criminal background in order to inform bail decisions. These risk profiles can be used to determine appropriate bail amounts, as well as who must remain behind bars without bail and who can be released under supervision of a pretrial services program, and who can leave under their own recognizance. We can talk about minimum security detention centers. We can set up minimum security detention centers based south, north, central, Tobago, and so on, with work release during the day and detention at night. So there are alternatives. These people are not animals. One day is for them, one day might be for you, because this criminal justice system is so corrupt, you don't know when they're coming to pick up anybody in this country. You don't know. So don't ever think it's only them poor boys and them boys up in Laventille and Beetham. It's anywhere, it's any one of you. Because it's just this system under this corrupt dictatorial government is so corrupt in itself. And therefore we must have these alternatives. We can have these minimum detention centers to house non-violent offenders who are remanded pre-trial and they cannot get bail. Non-violent offenders. The locations will make it easier so their families can visit them, their loved ones, and so on. All rehab facilities and treatments will be offered for persons with drug and mental illness issues. And of course, again, you do an assessment. So if a person is mentally ill, they are not a high risk, they are not violent, is that the best place to drop them in a jail cell and lock them up in that kind of condition? No. No, it cannot be. People with drug issues as well. Locking them away, is that going to help them or help anyone in the society? What about fines for traffic offenses and so on? Placing these people, not violent people, in a jail? They can't work, so they'll never be able to pay the fine. They will lose their jobs. I'm saying we consider these alternatives, and I bet by tomorrow night, Rowley on the platform is saying, Kamala and them UNC want to free all the criminals, want to open the jails. That is not what I'm recommending, because you're also dotish, you will not understand that there are categories of offenders. Categories of offenders. And so you do it on a case-by-case basis to access work release during their existing job hours, as I said, you return to the facility at nighttime. And what could they have done? We passed this law to put the, what was it, Rudy, the bracelets? Electronic monitoring bracelets. What became of that? That's another way, again, the overcrowding. I saw Faris, the same disgraced AG. Remember he came, crocodile tears one Moinders cost to feed one prisoner inside a jail? That's taxpayers' dollars, we understand. But if it's a non-violent person, etc., and you do the individual case-by-case assessment, you have the bracelet. So you know where that person is every single minute of every hour of every day. What has become of that? So many good initiatives, we passed a law for that. Thrown on the wayside. Gone. And then you come to cry crocodile tears about, is UNC encouraging crime? You know they say that? When they fail, they blame everyone else. So we can deal with laws to prevent incarceration, meaning jail, of non-violent drug offenders. Not violent. Not violent, again, you do it case by case by case. We can pass legislation for compulsory drug treatment, not jail. And that will divert non-violent drug offenders. We send them to a drug treatment program for rehabilitation. Locking them in a jail will only further ruin their lives and that of their families. Anchor bracelets, I mentioned it before, on house arrest. We can use these two methods to reduce our current expenditure, housing prisoners, non-violent. Look about what our old and infirm prisoners. We can put them on house arrest with the monitoring bracelets. All infirm, not a danger to society, but yes, crime, there's punishment, but we can use another method to monitor, know where they are, and what to do. So in addition to saving state money for housing and feeding these persons, these bracelets will also prevent the destructive effect of removing fathers or mothers from their homes. A proper risk assessment will be done. It's our belief that we should try our utmost to keep parents in the lives of their children. We have old and infirm prisoners, I mentioned already, are not a threat to the society, not a threat to anyone. The only threats to Trinidad and Tobago is Rowley and his cabinet. Those are the biggest threats to the country. We can use this method to reintegrate them back into society. People do make mistakes. Some deserve to be in jail. I make the point. I'm not saying open the jail and let everybody run out, because that's what Rowley going to tell you all tomorrow. So, he lies, so we just put him aside. And don't bother with David. You don't go up by bullet to see this man at all. And I think a very important measure, our children are also under siege. And therefore, I want to suggest, we from the UNC, that when you lock up parents, you disrupt the family relationships, you get negative outcomes for children, including poverty, poor academic records, poor performance, aggression, depression, delinquency, substance abuse. And therefore, I want to make a suggestion that mothers and fathers who are unable to work on parenting skills that may be necessary for reunification, separation, interferes with the parent's ability and the child to form and maintain a strong attachment. Through no fault of their own, children pay the price for their parents' behavior. Children pay the price for parents' behavior. Often without parental support, these children become victims of abuse, and in turn some become criminals as well. A UNC government will introduce programs for the financial, psychological, and emotional support of children for the duration of the parents' lockup, incarceration in a jail. We will afford and give support to these children. They were not to blame. It was never their fault. We plan to utilize the support of the police youth clubs, religious organizations, schools, social services, and so on. On top of this, the children of crime victims, children who have lost one or both parents to crime, we suggest that they suffer the most. They're in fact the hidden victims of most crimes. Children's experience as either targets or witnesses to violence affect their views on the world, themselves, their ideas, the meaning, the purpose of their life, their expectations, and their moral development. Exposure to violence often interferes with their developmental tasks children need to accomplish to become competent members of society. And therefore, we propose a fund be set up, again on a case-by-case basis, to provide necessary support to children who have lost one or both parents to crime. So when you get a mother and father wiped out, what happens to those children? What becomes of them? Does anyone think about that? One minister will run and drop 2 hampers at the house, take a big photo up, and that's the end of that. Remember that? The minister of, which one was it? The one social development. You go and cry 2 crocodile tears, you make 1 visit and another Halloween pic, photo up. So we should have a fund, and again on a case-by-case basis, to support children who have lost one or both parents to crime. No amount of money can replace a parent, but we must do our best for our nation's children. These are just some of our plans to help with the crime pandemic. And for more of our anti-crime plans, you can check our website, social media page. So I just did some of them tonight. We have some very solid plans. We believe they could work. We had begun some of them whilst we were in office, but there are more that we have developed over time and in the way that the society has moved on. So I close now with the PNM indemnity scandal. We have spoken of it, many have spoken of it. We just have to see that the PNM is akin to a criminal enterprise. You look at the Nelson Gate matter, we see it as in a long line of unlawful actions committed by this government. The members try their best to escape the Nelson Gate scandal, and they will not get away by having PIP. They will have to come and account for their actions in this matter. And I want to remind you that you remember when the government changed, Nelson remained on a retainer with the PNM. Remember that. He gave a one-page legal opinion on the billion-dollar lawsuit against former chairman Malcolm Jones. You all remember that? Before that, he gave pages and pages when we were in government as to why the state had a good case to go after the billions that the government lost, the state lost because of WGTL scandal with Malcolm Jones. And he gave those opinions, the cases were filed, and what happened? Government changed. Nelson said, listen, I have cancer. Sorry to hear it, but I want my money. Reminds me of Rowley, I want my money. I don't like my money sleeping out, I want my money now, no. And so he sued the state for $11 million, $10 million or $11 million for previous work done. He filed a case, against the AG, the now disgraced AG, Faris Al-Rawi, for that $10 to $11 million. And then he succeeded in that part of the case. The government appealed. The Faris government appealed. And in between that, suddenly now, Faris meets this man, Mr. Nelson, and they broker a deal. I will pay you the money, but you know what? He had to turn state witness. So this man wants his money, wants his money. Real bad. And then the rest you have heard before, repeated in the print press everywhere. What happened? He turned state witness to implicate himself and others. Well, that case collapsed. But I want you to remember, in addition to that $10, $11 million, and they paid it, Faris's government paid it. And he withdrew the cases. They said, we'll appeal. Nelson, we pay you, and they paid him. But there's another question I want to ask. When Nelson now remained as Faris's lawyer now in the Petrotrin matter, the Malcolm Jones WGTL scandal, he wrote a one-page opinion, one page, for the government to withdraw a $1 billion case, a one-page opinion. My question tonight is, how much money did you pay Nelson for that one-page legal opinion that you used to withdraw the case? How much did you pay him? So the 11 million plus, and continuing the indemnity you've heard about before, all the millions that she was claiming there. How much did you pay? Because when this matter went to the Privy Council, I want to remind you, this matter with the Nelson's opinion, the withdrawal of the case against Malcolm Jones, this is what the Privy Council said. It appears to the board, that is the board of the Privy Council, and I'm quoting, that as the available evidence stands at the moment, there are grounds for thinking that the decision to abandon the claim against Mr. Jones may have been influenced by political factors. There's a Privy Council, they didn't outright come up and say, boy, it's pure politics going on here. Influenced by political factors. And the then AG Faris was involved in the matter of the withdrawal. Shortly after Nelson was paid for this bogus opinion, as I said, he was seeking the 11 million. How much did you pay him for this one-page legal opinion, which you used to withdraw the case of Malcolm Jones? And shameless as they are, when we called out Faris, he said it was him and him and him. Remember, Dinesh? Was Faris say, well, look, we had to withdraw this case because Nelson gave us a one-pager and say, bad case. Remember that? And you had the other deals that you cut with the indemnity and so on. Political factors. So Faris was then involved. Paid the 11 million. Al-Rawi refused to pay him. He filed a written and whatever, as I told you, and then he turned witness against these people. So political factors. So Faris was saying, yes, it was me. And then when we called him out, he said, you know what? No, it's the board of Petrotrin gave the opinion to withdraw the case. Lies again. These people, bold-faced, shameless liars that we have run in this country. So I just wanted to remind you about this. It is not just about Nelson Gate and the turn state witnesses. So much more is involved and so much money. I close tonight with just something that Dr. Munila had raised because I think it is very important. This has to do with the Todd Street, and I know a lot of people are very keen and want to hear about this matter. So we have in our possession documents Dr. Munila would have released, and I have them some here. And just look at the timeline. On the 23rd of March 2022, March 2022, a letter from the Minister of Education, signed under the hand of whom? The Minister Bundles. No, sorry, Nyan Gatsby Dolly. That's Arnold, just prints this in your brain, you know. 23rd March, to Mr. Noel Garcia, Chairman of the HDC. Dear Chairman, non-objection to use approximately 1 hectare of unutilized land designated for institutional purposes and located off Tots Road, San Fernando. We refer to the subject and caption. Further to your letter dated 8 March, this is what the Minister Gadsby Dolly said. Further to your letter of 8th March, the Minister of Education does not object to the use of the land by the Trinidad and Tobago Housing Development Corporation. This is signed by whom? The Minister of Education. I want you to remember that. Rudy, you had raised these things already. Signed by Minister Gadsby Dolly. This is dated, as I said, 23rd March this year, 2022. Second letter now comes from the Ministry of Planning. This letter is dated April 7, 2022. So a few weeks later, April this year. And this letter goes to the Managing Director, Housing Development Corporation, their Managing Director. Listen to this. Request for the use of the parcel of land. Please be advised, the matter has been investigated. The site is located in an area allocated for urban development with a parent parcel, of which this 1 hectare forms part being allocated as a school site. This is from whom? Tongue and Country. This is after Minister Gadsby said they have no objection. They have none. This is Tongue and Country Planning. Okay? Then it says, the Town and Country Planning Division does not recommend the use of this site for residential purposes, as this would not conform with present planning policy. Totally contrary to what Minister Gadsby said. Further, any future recommendation must be completed by a written correspondence from the Minister of Education. So here, a totally different thing, a little while after, from Minister Gadsby, but it doesn't end there, you know. Moving along. Ministry of Education, 23rd March, as I told you. And then now we have, so we had 23rd March, Gadsby saying, go ahead, no problem. Tongue Country Planning say, no way. And then we come now to 29 July of this year. From whom? The Ministry of Education. This is after Gadsby's letter, which was in 23rd March, July 29, 2022, from the Ministry of Education. Who signs this letter now? The Permanent Secretary. So is the minister going against the public servants? Or are the public servants going against the minister? This is what it says to the Housing Development Corporation. It says, a site visit to the unutilized land designated for institutional purposes, located off Todd Street, substantiated the need to retain the lands for its intended purpose. There's a PS. But Gadsby Dolly feels she's the boss. They're in charge now. Tongue and Country says no. PS says no. But Minister Gadsby says, go ahead, man, take it. Give it to the HDC. The letter continues. The lands will present opportunity for more green spaces and facilitate the construction of replacement facilities, expansion of the academic and sporting curriculum to San Fernando West, San Fernando Central secondary schools, which are both more than 50 years old. So here it is. The PS is saying, leave it what it is for. And continues, in light of the foregoing, in recognition of the ministry's responsibility to ensure none of the nation's youth is left behind, the ministry is unable to accede to your request. Permanent Secretary. Permanent Secretary, you see, you're all not going to get away with this. All of this is a bid to house pad and voter pad in San Fernando West and Lesser Form. That's what this is about. What is the Great Russian Hurry? Your Permanent Secretary saying no. Tongue and country is telling you no. But no, look what happens now. So this one, where the minister says no, July 29, 2022, and then we come to the cabinet. The cabinet. In spite of the PS saying no, tongue and country say no, these fellows just going ahead. Here it is, a cabinet matter considered September 8th, 2022. September 8th, 2022. Matter considered by cabinet on, take note, September 8th, 2022. Decision confirmed by cabinet on September 8th, 2022. The cabinet does not operate like that. When a note comes to cabinet, we've been there, done that. The matter is considered on one day, and then it is confirmed in the following week. So you have time, in case you have stopgap, you have things to check. No. Same day they bring the note. Same day considered, same day approved to transfer the land to the HDC. Wow. That's what this cabinet minute is, dated September 8, 2022, considered September 8, 2022. Confirmed by the cabinet, and hear what it says. Cabinet agreed to the transfer of the land, 1 hectare, Todd Street, and so on, to the Trinidad and Tobago Housing Development Corporation to facilitate a development of multi-family housing, 72 apartment units. If that is not voter pardon in broad daylight, what is not? Using state resources on lands, tongue and country says no. The public servants in Mr. Hurricane says no, but the minister, yes, go ahead. And then the cabinet comes now after all that and says they have agreed to transfer that piece of land to HDC. So, you know, lawyers, Dinesh and Kyle and all the great UNC lawyers, get their thinking caps on and pen and paper and start to write. We must stop this project. We must stop this project. And not only must we stop it because it is not the right thing to do, given tongue and country, given the words from Ministry of Education, but also because it's only for nefarious purposes of voter pardon, not for the benefit of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So my friends, as I close tonight, I want to thank you very much for your patience in joining us, in sharing with us, and I acknowledge we are in the darkest days, but as we tell you, every time we speak, I remind you that as surely as the day follows the night, the sun will rise again. I thank you and God bless you.
Who feel the black? Who feel the white? I don't know. But it's settled tomorrow night. Who feel the wrong? Who feel the right? Come and go. And all who feel the too bright, let me jump up, let me wind up, party non-stop. Ramaje Dingo Lekekete, we come to play mass. Every creed and class, don't let nothing pass. Like a ready TV, all the love inside the way. Uptown and ghetto, feeling the tempo. Soca and Kaiso, it's party day like so. Soon as we land, fun is the plan. We like to jam, like the man bam. Waving we hand inside the band, we inside the band. And if you cut me, you go see blood. And if you squeeze me, you go feel the love.